All right. Is it actually going to show the right camera? Hi, stream. How you doing?
What's happening?
Oh no!
Technical difficulties.
Don't think it's going to show the right camera because YouTube is being psychotic today.
All right, Brad, it's all on you.
It's all on.
Brad's fired.
It's the Brad show today.
It's what the people want, anyways.
Exactly. We're just riding on your coattails.
Oh, jeez. Don't say that.
No pressure.
It's not a Canadian stream without some technical difficulties, right?
Right.
And
there we go. I can fix this. Bam! Here we go. We're live. Cask strength,
right.
etc., etc. Theoretically switching to the proper view.
Theoretically.
You
know what we need right now?
We
need one of those like
infinity
old-timey, like when a TV
That's
station
nice.
goes off the air and there's like a mouse chewing the cord, you know, behind the camera. Some goofy music playing. Yeah, that's what we need.
Sure.
Oh boy. Hey guys, we'll start actually talking about things, and maybe right now.
Maybe. Can the people actually hear us?
Camera's not available.
It's you guys. Here, I'll just switch to you guys. Go for it. Talk.
Okay.
I'll work stuff out.
Hey guys, welcome to Cast Strength with Vito. I'm drinking Kilbeggan.
And I have Jameson Black Barrel.
That is our co-host Josh.
Oh yeah, that's right. I should probably introduce myself like you did, huh?
We're professionals. We can do this.
Totally professional. We know what we're doing.
Yep. And Brad behind the mic drinking some Asila, I think.
Oh, I'm here somewhere drinking Asila, yes.
Yes, that's right. The voice of God.
Hi. Oh, man. Well, all right. It's great to be back again. We're going to try to make this as scheduled as possible every Wednesday night, maybe switch over to Thursday nights occasionally. Thanks for everyone for showing up early and getting the chat going.
So what made you pick that Kilbeggan?
Mr. Daniel Brower. Yes, I will learn how to speak one day. Recommended it to me. I asked him, what's a decent Irish besides Redbreast that I can get behind, and he suggested Kilbeggan, and I'm almost liking it. It's just because I'm comparing it to Redbreast and the cast strength Redbreast.
That's a tough comparison to make.
I know, but it's one of those things where it's like my point of reference is so high already that everything below it that never meets the expectations that I have set for a specific like.
Right, you can't go backwards once you've had some of the best. Then it's hard to go backwards.
Yeah, so
I mean, once you taste the caviar, man.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, actually, it was weird because one of the Canadian guys, Daniel Hayes, the only Ardbegs he's ever had have been the 20-something, the Dark Cove, Alligator, and Ari Verdes.
Tell him a place to start.
Yeah, his first one was the 20-something, so it's like he's started up here, and now he's got to like kind of make his way back up. It's interesting, but yeah,
it's a descending spiral of disappointment.
Yeah,
to go from the best to the worst. Yeah. Well, I mean, with Ardbeg, there really isn't the worst, is there?
Yeah,
Black Barrel is pretty tasty, man, and I would almost call it kind of a poor man's Redbreast. I don't mean to say that it's quite the same or anything like that, but it is pretty tasty. Like, has a nice, rich kind of fruitiness to it and stuff like that. So, along the lines of Redbreast. So, but shit, this was just over $30, I think. And a certain Irish gentleman we all know recommended it to me today. So I would pick some up. Although I was a total snob in the line by accident. When I was leaving the store, the guy was like, "Oh, I tried to catch me."
To the confessional booth, lay it all out.
Yeah, I need to be absolved of my sins.
Father Vito has you.
You're forgiven, apparently. Excellent.
The checkout guy, he was trying to sell me on Caskmates, and I was like, "Yeah, I've had that before, man, but this guy that I know that lives in Ireland, he recommended this one to me, which sounds like a total jerk, right? But
Well, he
he's
should
like,
have name dropped him. He should have just been like Terry, like, you know,
Terry
Terry
Dolan,
Dolan
you might know him.
recommended this to me. He's like, who's
Yeah.
Terry Dolan? What, you don't know Terry Dolan?
He's the Irish guy.
The Irish guy.
No, I was walking out of the store like, oh my God, I sounded like such a dick.
It's one of those weird realizations that you just have to kind of just accept and then move
So
on. And
shit
don't make
that
it-
way. I was just like trying to make small talk and I failed.
be better at it.
Yeah, I need to. Well, yeah.
Brad,
and then Brad's got to go
Yes,
to
Vito.
are you able to discuss what's in your glass right now? Or are you busy?
I'm just drinking some Asila. I can't show myself apparently because my camera is drunk. I'm not really sure. It decides to go to an infinity mirror instead of showing my actual webcam, which is an
Have you been
interesting.
feeding it Canadian
phenomenon.
Mist?
You're
Thankfully
supposed
not.
to drink the whiskey, not give it to your camera, Brad.
I what can you do? I mean, it was
What can you-
smoking yesterday when I turned it off, so it's probably not a great sign for my computer. But this Asila is really helping my mood regardless because
Yeah,
it is
that-
tasty.
That'll happen.
That's great. I have a request for the people watching. Like and comment. We want to try to make this as inclusive as possible, and we want to hear your feedback.
Absolutely.
We're trying to mold. We're learning as we go. We really want to make this try to make this a community thing. We have a lot of plans in place, but we want to kind of gauge where we're going to take it, and we want to use you guys as as a what would be the right word? Brain trust.
Brain trust, sure.
Yeah. Right. So whether you guys message us separately or in the comments under the video, any feedback is really appreciated.
Or like suggestions of topics or things to do, things to try, stuff like that. We're trying to figure out what works best, and yeah, like Vito said, make it interactive was kind of the goal as much as possible. So
yeah. So I think we're gonna get started with the heavy hitters, but a quick rundown. We're gonna start doing this in the near the beginning of the episode to give you guys something to look forward to, engage some questions and formulate some stuff in your head. We have Bruichladdich Beatdown tonight. Three of us have each an expression from Bruichladdich distilleries that we're gonna talk about and try to compare. There's a
Bruichladdich Beatdown.
Yeah, there's a bit of a thrown in wrench because I like to, as you guys will learn for the people that haven't met me personally, I like to be that just weird addition in the corner, just try this thing out. And yeah, there's always going to be some sort of weirdness happening. But yeah, there's that coming up. As well as we're going to do a fire round of 10 innovations within the whiskey world over the past couple hundred years. And we're going to discuss them. If Brad can figure out his camera, we're going to have pictures for you guys so you know exactly what we're talking about.
I'm not holding my breath at this point.
We're gonna try. If else fails, we're gonna link everything we talk about in the description below. So if you guys want to jump in afterwards and take a look at exactly what we're talking about, if we don't do a good enough job explaining it, because we probably won't, let's be real. As professional as we are, we're only human.
Yeah.
And then we're going to close up the show with some fiddly bits. Josh.
Yes, sir.
We discussed this a couple days ago.
We did.
And I'm a little upset about it, but you weren't as upset about it. You have a bit more of a level-headed mind when it comes to stuff like this.
I'm trying to see both sides. Be fair. But it's about Diageo trying to change the way that Scotch whiskey is produced and marketed. Of course, everybody knows Diageo probably, but just in case somebody doesn't, they own roughly a quarter of all the Scotch distilleries, along with many other brands internationally, right? So they own all kinds of distilleries and brands you're familiar with. I think it's an English company, right? They're out of London or something like that, I believe.
I believe so.
Yeah. So they're trying to, Scotch whiskey is kind of a protected brand. It's one of those things, if it says Scotch whiskey on the label, it has to mean a certain thing. It has to meet certain criteria. Of course, it has to come from Scotland, but there's a lot of other things that go into that. And they're trying to create some other categories, but still put the words Scotch whiskey on the label, like Scotch whiskey infusions, which are lower alcohol, maybe made with some actual Scotch whiskey, but they've had their flavors added.
Fireball.
Right, like a Fireball, right? There wasn't a whole lot of details in there, but I'm imagining, sort of those cocktails in a can that you can find with like bourbon and rye and stuff like that, but doing it with Scotch. And the Scotch Whisky Association wasn't too keen on that.
Yeah, the article had and we'll link to the article in the description. But yeah, the article had a good balance of both sides. They did a fairly good job of presenting where Diageo's trying to go and trying to influence, but also presenting the Scotch Association's strict policies of this is what's worked so far. This is how we got here. There shouldn't be so much deviation, right? Especially and that's all that, like, the whole low alcohol and flavored beverages sort of thing. It's when you think Scotch, you don't think that, right? Like, and not to be snobby about it, but I feel like it doesn't really belong under the same branch or umbrella, I should say, of what's out there right now.
Yeah, devil's advocate first, and then I'm not a fan of this anyway, but if I'm going to see a side of this, there are beverages in the US that are labeled with, say, straight bourbon, use some of that protected legal language, right? But they also, if they put extra terms on there to describe that this is a flavor infused bourbon whiskey or something like that's a way of getting around those regulations and not having it be a truly pure bourbon or some other category of American whiskey. So they're kind of trying to do a similar thing over there with Scotch, right? There's EU classifications of beverages like spirit drink, which I thought was kind of a funny term.
Yeah. Well, speaking of funny terms, 79 Mini just said they can make all that product and just call it Scottish whiskey.
Scottish.
That is amazing.
Yeah. I think he needs to get hired by Diageo's marketing team, I think. So yeah, the real issue that they have is using the term Scotch whiskey, which has a lot of history, tradition, authenticity, a lot of things wrapped up in labeling something Scotch whiskey, right?
Yeah.
So the argument is, if you start putting Scotch whiskey, etc., spirit drink or Scotch whiskey infused beverage, then does that sort of dilute the image they're trying to protect?
Yeah, the brand is Scotch, right? And anything that kind of deviates from it excessively, such as that, I feel doesn't belong under that category.
Right.
If you want to produce it, absolutely go ahead and do it, but I believe it shouldn't be categorized as Scotch. If you want to produce, get barrels, produce it out of Scotland, because I'm pretty sure there's the laws pretty much say you can't call it that.
Yeah, or come up with a different name, something like that. No, I completely agree, but
even then you run into issues with production and like. Again, and the article doesn't go too deep into it. This is all just ideas proposed by Diageo to the association. But we're already seeing issues with age statements and some distilleries not being able to keep up with the age statements. How is this going to affect that, right?
Or there was the Cardew had the pure malt
Yeah,
So
yeah.
instead of being
then.
able to say, we all know single malt means one distillery made of 100% malted barley, right?
Yeah.
So they tried to use the term pure malt for what was actually a blended malt, I guess. I think it was a blended malt. It was a way of being a little bit disingenuous and deceptive on the label. So, if you weren't really highly educated on what the label definitions mean, you might think you were buying one thing, but you were actually buying another. So they got in trouble for doing that. The other thing was that I thought was kind of weird. Diageo in particular wanted to do some tequila barrel finishes.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, the article mentioned that, and I thought that was interesting. But again, it's so weird to think about, right? And not to say that growth and evolution within Scotch isn't a bad thing, but I don't know, man. It's just weird.
Yeah,
it's definitely weird.
I think part of the concern with that particular case was that Diageo owns Don Julio tequila.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they were wanting to put specifically the name Don Julio tequila on the Scotch instead of it just saying tequila finished Scotch, like you would say port finished or sherry finished or whatever.
That's a mistake, right?
It was trying to be specific, and there's some kind of regulation with the Scotch Whisky Association that kind of prohibits them from putting two different distilleries on the same label so that it's very clear what it is and where it came from. I could be totally in support of them saying this is tequila finished, and then on the back label it says it came from Don Julio. I don't really see a problem with that, but
it's one of those things where everyone's gonna have their own kind of view on it. Adam said that Adam and a couple other people, where is it? Adam and the Rock and Ed said, the tequila barrel maturation or finishing would be something they can get behind. It's just weird. It's one of those just weird things because with wine, you understand it because they've been doing it in wine barrels for so long and ex-bourbon barrels.
Right. And it doesn't generally say this is finished in wine from this particular vineyard in Spain or whatever, right? Like it just says sherry finish, maybe PX sherry or something.
Yeah, definitely
like
a lot more vague.
Right.
Oh yeah, Brad's still here.
I'm still here. I'm just invisible.
Oh,
the demi host in the sky.
Unless I do this and I just take over. But see, I could do this.
Hey,
I could appear as the whole screen, but I can't share the screen with you guys for some reason because my webcam refuses to share with the camera software that I'm using to broadcast.
I just want to say, I can't see Brad, but I could feel his presence. I knew he was there.
I'm always here
the whole time. He's always watching.
It's true.
Always there. Omnipresent.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's all I really want to talk about that because.
Yeah. I agree. We're all for clarity and labeling and making sure you know what it is you're buying when you pick something up. So that's kind of the bottom line for that for me, I think.
All right. Let's start with these whiskey innovations because this is something that's really interesting. And when we were talking about this the other night, so just going through the rundown.
Super cool, but super nerdy.
We pre-plan most of this as professionally as we can, and that's just a little peek behind the curtain. We actually do discuss this. It's not all off the cuff. I know that it may seem like it because of how professional we are.
Dozens of minutes go into planning.
I definitely didn't read the planning doc, so this is all new to me.
All right.
So the first innovation on the list was 1785.
Yep. Yeah. That's not the topic. That's the year 1785.
Right. But it goes back as far as that in terms of innovations in the whiskey world that still are around today.
Yeah, major stuff, right? And the first one, and a couple of people are going to be happy about this. The first major innovation was the single pot still whiskey. Those crazy bastards over in Ireland didn't particularly like the malt tax that was enforced on them, and that was essentially put in place to to put more money into the government, right? That's what
for British to retain control of their colonies and such.
Exactly, right. So and what it did was, as it says, malt tax, it put a heavy tax on malted barley.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Irish did, because they love the drink, as we all know from Hollywood, they started mixing as low a percentage of barley as possible, and combined it with tax-free grains, so cereals,
unmalted barley,
unmalted barley, absolutely, right.
Yep.
And that's essentially how all Irish whiskey is made now. For the most part, I'm almost positive, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's definitely some variation and different stuff going on today. There's an Irish whiskey boom, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Often, though, Irish whiskeys will have a certain percentage of unmalted barley, right? I think you need some malted barley to have the proper enzymes to get the fermentation to go well and all that, but a certain percentage of unmalted barley is common. Now, of course, I think your Kilbeggan there might be just grain whiskey, not malt whiskey.
It doesn't say on the label, which kind of upsets me, but it does say it's Ireland's oldest licensed distillery.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. So that's an interesting little, like, it's not the oldest, it's the oldest licensed. 1757.
Wow.
Was when they were established. So prior to the pot still whiskey, so they must have been producing whiskey prior. I didn't do any research into this because I'm professional.
Sure.
But yeah, they must have they switched over when the malt tax kicked in. So yeah, that's cool. The next one
is the Lincoln County process.
I'll let you take care of this because you're American. And
I should be the expert, right? Because I'm American.
You should be.
It was the filtering process through charcoal, like what the famous example being Jack Daniel's, right? That does the charcoal filtering and mellowing through maple, and it just makes for a cleaner, smoother, more mellow whiskey, and I guess that's characteristic of Tennessee whiskey in particular, right?
Yeah.
Even though there are some Tennessee whiskeys that don't do that and don't meet that requirement.
Now, do you want to start a fight? Do you want to start a fight?
No, I don't. All whiskey is good whiskey.
Tennessee whiskey, bourbon or not bourbon?
Yes.
I plead the fifth. That's another American thing you guys don't know about.
Damn Americans!
Sorry.
So that's the next innovation on the list, and then it goes on to the coffee still, which is different than a pot still.
Yeah, different than a pot still, and not a coffee like the drink you drink in the morning.
Right.
COFFEY. Still.
Right.
You don't know my morning drinking habits, Vito.
What's that?
You don't know my morning drinking habits.
I think I have a good idea of it by now.
Brad just drinks new make fresh from the still every morning.
That's
when he
right.
gets up.
That's right.
He has a little straw beside his bed. He just wakes up, take a sip, and then that's how he gets up in the morning.
Sounds about right.
But yeah, the coffee still, 1830 is when it's credited as being used for the first time. Essentially, it was created because pot still distillation is apparently inherently inefficient and labor intensive, right? So this new design continuously produces alcohol at a higher strength and lower cost, right? So because it's got two columns, it can distill and you can keep refilling it for uninterrupted distillation.
Exactly.
Crucial for blending Irish whiskeys, and I didn't know this until we talked about it. All bourbon production is made with either the coffee still or a closed variant of it, right?
Yeah, nearly all. Like if you're going to generalize painting with a broad brush, then yeah, pretty much all. There's definitely there's craft distilleries that only use pot stills, but they still make a bourbon. Like, yeah, that's but generally speaking, it's a column still or coffee still process. You know, the difference aside from the continuous production and efficiency and stuff that you can get, it's a lighter, kind of cleaner spirit because you don't have the reflux that happens on a pot still, right? So you don't have you can make a lot more spirit a lot more quickly that has a more clean, crisp flavor, but you don't have as much complexity and richness and such usually as you do with a pot still. I mean, just again, broadly, generally speaking.
Sure.
Josh, you're so smart. Did I ever tell you that?
So smart.
You're so smart.
Thanks, Vito.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's, you know, I think your large bourbon producers probably pretty much all use a column still like that, but there's definitely a ton of guys that don't and still make bourbon anyway. So
yeah. All right.
Sour mash.
1835 was when apparently it was brought into existence.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And this is it's kind of a runoff from the distillation process that they collect and put back into the new batch before it gets distilled.
What would that help with? Well, like why would they do that? I like when I think about Jack Daniels, and I heard about this for the first time before I got into whiskey. I was like, I don't understand, why would they do that? Like, that just seems weird.
Yeah, I only understand it kind of in really general terms. I don't know a whole lot about the specifics on that yet, but you get this sour, funky runoff from the distillation process that contains leftover yeast, right, which and nutrients and things like that you can put back into your new batch to feed that and keep like kind of a consistent flavor profile and promote better fermentation and stuff like that. So you're not wasting this runoff, and it's actually good for keeping the next batch of whiskey being consistent with what everything you made before. Yeah, I think it's kind of a weird term because a lot of people think that it's the like there's a sour fermentation, you know what I mean?
That's what I used to think when I would see Jack Daniels and I'd see sour mash. I was like, I don't understand.
Right.
Yeah, it's a weird it's a weird term.
It seems like it would be, but that's not quite what it means.
I think Brad is still with us, right, Brad?
Oh, I'm always with you, Vito.
Oh,
that's a little creepy.
Sure, right here in my heart.
Really quickly, I am getting the pleasure of visiting Brad this week.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's something to look forward to. We'll post a couple of
the
pictures.
HR team told me that I wasn't allowed to fire people over the internet, so you gotta come here so we can do your exit interview.
You have to do it in person. He's gonna sit you down in a conference room and be like, Vito, we need to talk about your performance lately.
Oh boy,
is it
to do with my mic? I feel like
it's fine. You're fine. It's all good. No, it's going to be a lot of fun getting you down here.
Analogy to draw is making vinegar with a mother, right? So
Oh yeah, or like sourdough, where you have like the mother dough that
like a starter
keep using the starter from. Yeah.
Right. So you can recycle that same batch of yeast and bacteria and stuff, and make a new vinegar that's similar or exactly the same as the old vinegar. It's analogous to that.
Yeah.
Rather than sort of starting from scratch every single time. Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, it'll be fun getting you over here, Vito. We're gonna have a good time.
I'm gonna bring over a couple of bottles. We're gonna have some Puni.
Yes.
And I have a bourbon surprise for you.
Ooh, a bourbon surprise from Canada.
It was from the last Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Oh, you picked it up and brought it back. You didn't buy it there.
Brought it back, and I didn't get stopped at the border this time.
Oh,
that's good.
Nice.
Good job. Good work.
In the law.
I stayed within the laws. I did my Canadian diligence and stayed within what I'm allowed to work with.
No, not Canadian bourbon. Bourbon that was made its way into Canada.
Yeah, I smuggled it. I smuggled it in legally, but it was
In the prison pocket.
oh God, no.
That would be very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So
how about those innovations, huh?
how about those whiskeys?
Hey.
Yeah.
Blending is next. Blending was the next major innovation that occurred in the modern era. 1860. Someone by the name of Andrew Usher Jr. is credited with being the father of blending. Now, why would you blend?
I think there's probably a couple of goals in blending. You can get a greater volume of whiskey at a lower cost, and you can also make a more friendly, approachable flavor profile for say non-experienced whiskey drinkers.
Yeah, you could get a lot more
and that's why it's one of
consistency
those-
if you're mixing between casks instead of
Yep.
if a cask goes funky or whatever, you can always blend it.
That's something
until
to
it's
consider
normal.
too, because prior to way after 1860, Scotch barrels were wildly inconsistent because there wasn't a specific source that they were all coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the blending really helped introduce it to a wider audience by keeping it a little bit more friendly versus the volatility probably at the time between batch to batch.
And it's worth pointing out, like, what does blending mean, right? Like, because unless we're talking about a single cask, single barrel release, every whiskey is blended. It's just whether it's in one distillery or whether it's a blend of multiple distilleries, right?
And this is an interesting thing. And I guess I didn't pay enough attention when during the Modern Rogue X Whiskey Vault episode happened. But there's blended malt, which we know.
Yep.
Blended grain, which we know. But there's also blended Scotch, which I'm not too sure if they discussed, but I didn't know about blended Scotch.
Mm-hmm.
And through research and discussion with Josh, blended Scotch, for people that don't know or may have forgotten, it's made using single malt that's been pot stilled and grain whiskeys that have been column stilled.
Or not necessarily the distillation itself, but whether it's grain or malt.
Right. Because,
Yeah, so you can have like two single malts from two different distilleries and have a blended malt, and then you have two different single grain from two different single distilleries, and that's a blended grain. And if you have a mix of grain and malt, then you have a blended Scotch, which is
as long as they're from Scotland.
What?
It all has to be from Scotland if it's a blended Scotch.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Generally, blended Scotch is the cheapest available out there, but of course, you've got your outliers like Compass Box and stuff.
Yeah,
are definitely far from the cheapest.
Yeah,
so.
But for the most part, the blended Scotches include Dewar's, Johnny Walker, Buchanan's Grants, and Chivas. So that's
right.
That was very interesting. Little bit of information that I didn't know about. Specifically, the blended Scotch. It's right in front of my eyes too with Dewar's and Johnny Walker, but it was just didn't
click. Yeah. It's an interesting. And Jason here in the chat was saying a Compass Box has a good explanation of it on their website.
They wouldn't they?
Yeah, Compass Box explains everything.
God damn it, Compass Box.
They go into all the details.
They're professionals. They're true professionals.
They actually
really
know what they're
have it
doing.
together. So then after the blending is bottled bourbon, because of course
bourbon.
Of course, the history of bourbon is back in the day. You'd go to your local pharmacist or whatever and buy bourbon. Either you could buy it by the barrel or in jugs and things like that, I'm sure. But the whole bottled in bond thing kind of came about because people were producing all kinds of shady, nasty stuff and labeling it and selling it as bourbon, and folks wanted to know, what they were getting was authentic and what it was labeled as was accurate. So, the whole bottled in bond thing is part of that, but also putting bourbon into bottles as opposed to having it just be, generic containers. Old Forester was the first. Credited with being the first to put commercially filled sealed bottles, like with a tax stamp
Yeah,
over
and
the
you were
cork.
telling me like that's why most bottles nowadays, some I'd say
Often, yeah.
most have that little stamp, and I was curious about that. I was like, look, I don't understand because a lot of other places don't have that. That's
Right.
that's just a nice little nod to the tradition of the bottled bourbon.
Right. These days, it's like part of the image, but that's like
Yeah.
the
It
source of
becomes
it.
synonymous.
This has been sealed by, maybe it's like signed by the head distiller or what have you, and sealed with a government tax stamp. And okay, you can be reasonably assured that this is an authentic product because it's been verified.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Old Forester, kind of cool credit, and they have their Whiskey Row series right now that kind of goes back to that time period and a little further down the line, like the Prohibition batch. It goes all the way back to the original batch, I think is what they call the first one in that, and a new one coming out, Old Fine Whiskey. So kind of harkens back to that time.
Cool. And I'm so excited because I get to bring up something that I've brought up in every episode so far.
Oh God!
With this next innovation. Oh, I'm so excited, and everyone should be too.
Oh boy.
Drum malting.
Yes.
The machine that took over the hand turning of the malt in the warehouses. Right. Occurred in 1897. Now, hold on a second. For the people watching, if you didn't know,
here it comes.
One of my guilty pleasures, monkey shoulder.
Oh boy, there it is.
There it is.
There.
Got its name because the condition that would occur with a lot of malt shovelers would be because they're shoveling either with the dominant right or left side.
Right.
One shoulder would become so big that it would droop down like a gorilla, and it would be called like the monkey shoulder, right? So the solution that was innovated to ease the labor intensity of turning malt was drum malt, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the romantic image that we have of Scotch whiskey distilleries. That still gets done to a certain extent today, right? By certain distilleries, there's a guy in a room that's above the peat fires, and he's turning it with a rake by hand, like every day for a week to make a batch of malted barley. And the reality is that the majority of that doesn't actually receive that treatment today. It's like a giant industrial size
it just
tumbler, like a clothes dryer, but enormous.
It just gets the germination going of everything way more efficiently, obviously, right? Speeds up production, gets the whiskey into our Glencairns or whatever method of carriage that you prefer. But yeah, huge for the production, the quick production of whiskey in everywhere, right? I'm pretty sure they're used just about everywhere now.
Yeah, well, a lot of even a lot of American distilleries. I mean, of course, you can grow barley from a bunch of different places, but there's a lot of American distilleries that make malt whiskey that import, malt from Europe, from Scotland and elsewhere. Although there are Texas ones. There's a place called Blacklands Malt. But I do have one question about that segment. Is when did you get on the payroll for Monkey Shoulder? That's when
I'm working towards it, man. They'll hear about our professionalism and my consistent love for Monkey Shoulder blended.
At least you're ready, for a new career since you're about to be fired from this show. So it's good to know that you'll land on your feet, that we don't have to worry about you. That's nice.
Adam, I've never heard this quote from Ralphie before. He said it's the only whiskey named for a repetitive strain injury.
That's probably true.
So what's next?
Single malt.
Single malt. Now, this was interesting. We both kind of turned our heads a little bit, like single malt.
Surely existed before 1963, right?
Like we were both taken aback. We're like, wait a minute, what?
Right, but more in terms of marketing something as single malt as being a desirable higher end category that should be more desirable than say a blended malt.
Yeah. Sure. So prior for the most part, blended Scotch has dominated the early 1900s to about mid 1900s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the Grant brothers, right?
Yes.
Yes,
I think so.
They got on the whole marketing, the single malt aspect,
Right.
as
being sort of the sophisticated, higher end, cosmopolitan whiskey, and that blends were more pedestrian, which is the way we kind of think of it today, with some exception, right?
Yeah, in a non-snobbish way.
Right. Yeah, but the general, like the general impression that people have is that single malts are higher end and that blends in general are lower end. You know,
I have a friend that is always adamant that single malts are the superior malt, but you know, I don't think he'll ever admit that some blends are spectacular.
Get him some compass box, man.
Right?
Sort them right out.
It's all subjective. There's nothing wrong with it, right? It's all subjective. If you prefer the single malt then over the blends, no problem. Go for
sure.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot tied up in with like a romantic image of something being handcrafted by a small team of artisans in one place that has a particular terroir. You know, you can play up that with single malts as opposed to blended. Well, hey, we just took a bunch of stuff and mixed it together until we found something that tasted good.
Yeah.
It conveys like an authenticity or something, and you know that marketing can play a lot of tricks on the brain.
That it can.
Yep. So Glenfiddich.
Glenfiddich was the
Glenfiddich
first, right?
The first to really pursue that as a marketing strategy. And then cask finishing, I was surprised by this one too. It's so commonplace today. It was only really as recently as the 1980s.
Yeah,
that was
I would have thought
that.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I would it was tailing on you. We were both trying to say the same thing. I would have thought that it would have occurred way earlier than 1980.
Right. So all the port and rum and sherry and all these finishes that we're accustomed to having in almost every distillery's range, right? They're everywhere now, and you know, sought after as limited runs and things like that. It was originally not well received by the whiskey nerds at the time.
I guess I fall into that category if tequila barrel finishing comes to pass, right?
yeah, exactly.
Damn, man. You know what? I'm intrigued at it, but man, don't call it Scotch. I don't.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see what Diageo comes up with on that one.
Yep.
But yeah, that's of course now we totally accept that as being extra desirable sometimes, you know, in certain cases, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Sure. Brad's still here. Hey, Brad.
I'm here. Brad. Hi.
Man, I miss your face.
That's a lie. Hi. There's my face. I'm still here.
So that was number 9.
Yes.
The final modern whiskey innovation that has occurred was
this right here.
That beauty.
The Glencairn glass came out in 2001.
Michael Jackson, not the singer.
Right.
The other one.
Author.
Yeah, the famous spirits enthusiast author. Yeah.
He said, "A glass that holds the bouquet helps you understand what is so special about malts."
So true. We all can appreciate the difference that glassware can make, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
It was at the time. It was the inception of it was based on a copita, which we talked about in our previous episode.
Yeah.
With the input from 5 master blenders to achieve the weight at the bottom, the final shape. Right, how much the bulb would hold at the right.
Okay.
That's our timer, and we're professional.
We're totally professional.
I'm not sure if I would use that word.
Transition.
Okay, sure.
I forgot I
that's
said
the
it,
Glencairn glass. One thing I found was kind of interesting is they designed this base to be heavy and easy enough to grip, but also to like withstand years of use in a bar,
Yeah.
as opposed to being fragile.
They unfortunately they didn't consult Brad when they made this because his giant hands
Huge meat paws.
just can't handle.
Look here,
Glencairn.
I'll pull myself up here. Look at like it's a tiny little glass, but that's okay. They do make whiskey delicious.
so this is something that I didn't come across in the amazingly intensive minutes of research I did on this. The glass was designed in the mid 80s
Yeah.
and then produced in the 2000s.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of design and consultation and stuff that went into that.
The Sniper Mac 1 with the info drop. Thank you, sir.
Solid.
Oh,
Yeah, and there's 20 million of them out there, they estimated. So yeah, it's obviously like the ubiquitous whiskey glass, right? It's the one thing that you can count on and having everywhere.
You know it's a decent whiskey place if they at least have Glencairns.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's number 10. That was it. That's all of them.
guys, we did it.
We did it.
We did it.
all the way.
Success.
Yeah. I thought it was all pretty interesting.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
when
that's lots of good
discussing
stuff.
it was I learned a whole bunch, and I even said this when we were talking about it. I'm always learning something new concerning whiskey.
That's one of the things about whiskey. There's always something new to learn, always something new to experience and taste and try. There's always new things out there. You could spend a whole lifetime trying to learn all you can about whiskey and still have more. So that's one of the cool things about the hobby, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So is it time?
I think it's time.
It's time for the beatdown.
The Bruichladdich Beatdown.
The beatdown. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna go last on this one.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I'm gonna be throwing the wrench in the engine.
Sure.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
All right, Josh, what are you drinking?
I have the Port Charlotte Isla Barley, heavily peated single malt.
And Brad, the
Nice.
image of the bottle, maybe. I don't know.
No, maybe not.
Technical difficulties.
I mean, I could if I had
Oh.
one handy, but I don't. So I won't.
It's 100 proof, made with 100% Isla grown barley. So I got some in my glass right here. And yeah, it's definitely not my first time having this, or I've had a couple of other variations, but the Isla barley's been, just by a little bit, it's been my favorite, I think, of the Port Charlottes. What do you have there, Brad? Even though the people can't see it.
Oh, they'll be able to see it because
there we go.
I've got the classic Lottie in a little
Oh,
cute little adorable bottle because it came in like a pack of 3 with a bunch of different stuff. So
Right.
it's a actually really strange unpeated whiskey because a lot of people that you talk to will swear that it's peated no matter what you
Right.
tell them. But it's definitely not. It does
Right.
taste weirdly smoky somehow. I guess it's like the barrel spice combined with the sweetness and it's doing weird things. Like I can see why people say that, but it's definitely not. But it makes it weird and interesting because I really like smoky stuff, and technically this isn't peated, but I still get a lot of the same vibe from it, which is nice.
And of course, I mean, Bruichladdich with the bottle designs, super cool.
Yeah, the bottle
turquoise.
designs are great. They're all like weird, interesting colors or different shapes or things. So, and it's this one is what 50% ABV, I think. Yeah, 50%. So I mean, it's got nice kick to it. It's good stuff.
The only thing about that bottle though is that you can't tell how much you have left.
That is
well,
true.
I saw this somewhere. I don't remember where, but someone took a small little screwdriver I'll figure it out eventually. And they actually scratched out a line down the center.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they etched out the paint that's on the bottle.
Okay, so you get a little viewing window.
Exactly.
That's
right? So
that's
I
an
thought it was
interesting idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there you go. Mike Lissack just said the same thing. Scratched down the side of the bottle.
Yeah.
Or you just keep drinking until it's empty. It's fine.
And then you're just like, oh, I tried to pour a glass and there's nothing left.
Is that why your camera's not working today, Brad?
I don't know what you're talking about. I plead the fifth. I'm definitely doing that as a
It's
Canadian.
not a thing for you.
Shush.
You can't plead the
Shush. What are you drinking over there, Vito?
What do I have?
Mhm.
Well, it's not a whiskey.
Oh no, this is a whiskey show. What are you doing? Why?
I have the Botanist.
No, that's not even a whiskey. You're fired. It's the Josh show now. Here you go, Josh. It's all you.
Hey.
No, never mind. You're back. It's
Bruichladdich
fine.
dry gin expression.
Yep.
And a lot of distilleries, newer distilleries end up occupying the first couple of years of distillation with gins and clear spirits that they can produce quickly.
Yeah, things that don't need aging.
Exactly, right? So I didn't do a lot of research into it, into the creation of it, why they decided to do it and stuff like that. But I would assume it's around about the same sort of thought process as other distilleries reopening up. They need something to occupy the shelves in the meantime while they get their expressions on the way, the whiskey expressions.
Sure.
And this one here was made with majority of the botanicals. 22 of the 31 botanicals used in this gin are Islay grown.
Right.
They claim hand foraged by their own botanist. I don't have any other.
You know, I actually have a funny story about that. I met the distillery manager from Bruichladdich at an event, Alan Logan, not too long ago. And at some point in the conversation talking to him, I said, yeah, and I have a bottle of the Botanist. I mean, I'm not a big gin drinker, but that's definitely one of my favorites. I really like it a lot. He said, oh, yeah, and described the hand foraging and how they have these Islay botanists that find all of these botanical plants that go into it. And he said that everybody that's on the distillery staff, when it's like the season to collect stuff for making a batch of the Botanist, everybody has to go out and help with like foraging the plants and everything. And I tried to make a joke. I was like, oh, so when it's time to go, put on the gloves and snip plants outside on Islay, you just managed to be a little bit sick that day? And he's like, no, I go and help because I'm not a dick. Like, nice. Oh, I was just kidding. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it was just when I saw the website claiming hand foraged and stuff like that, I was like, okay. But if the guy literally said like everyone goes out and picks out all the herbs and the flowers and everything, that's really cool that it's actually hand done, right?
And Bruichladdich, I think in general, like a lot of their marketing and just the way they believe, their way of doing things is centered around the idea of terroir. So how better to do that than to pick your own, the majority of your botanicals from the island in which the distillery exists, right?
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, that's super cool.
And for everyone, and if everyone's wondering, it's bottled at 46%, a perfect amount of alcohol for a gin, in my opinion.
They make it in some super old, like steampunky kind of still, right?
Yeah, I just found this out prior to us getting on this call. It's called the Ugly Betty, and
that's right.
I laughed immediately. I was like, "Come on!" And then it's called a Lomond still, Lomond still.
Right.
If you look at it or if you Google it, it looks like a clunkier and uglier pot still. It's it's really like steampunky looking. It's just
Right.
really, and the Bruichladdich one is apparently one of the last in existence.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Yeah, so it's really interesting.
Yeah, Ugly
There you go.
Betty.
There's what it looks
There
like.
it is. There it is.
That's crazy looking.
Yeah, there's maybe one or two other distilleries that use that, I think, but that's pretty uncommon. So yeah, how is the Botanist? This is your first time ever trying it, right?
I just opened it up. You can probably, for the people watching, you can still see where the level is right there. I poured the first little bit, and it's not corkscrew. It is corked, synthetic cork, which is perfect because what I said as I opened up the bottle prior to recording. This bottle is absolutely gorgeous. It's going to be my next Infinity bottle.
That's a good call.
And I feel like we should probably have an Infinity discussion one day.
Absolutely.
Because we did an Infinity bottle
Forever ago,
a couple of months ago. Maybe we'll open them up one day and discuss what went in them briefly, how it changed.
I know
you're not impressed with yours.
Mine is delicious.
Mine actually came out decent, right? Like it's okay.
Yeah.
But back to the Botanist. I don't, and it's a bit of a running joke with a couple of people that I talked to that I don't remember my early 20s very well.
And gin is responsible for a large portion of that.
And yes, gin. I was a big gin drinker. Gin and tonic, gin and 7, gin just shots. You're in the 20s, you make some stupid mistakes.
Right. I didn't do any of that at all.
Me either. I don't know what you're talking about, sir.
I'm a crazy Canadian. What can I say?
That is not true. I did not toss out my Infinity bottle. Lies. It's down here in the cabinet.
Lies and slander.
It's just gross.
Lies and slander coming out of the
I'll
chat.
come over and drink it. Don't worry.
Um,
It's the Botanist is just like if you drink gin, you'll have an idea of what to expect, but it's so big and full. Like it's all the typical botanicals that you'll find in, let's say, a Bombay Sapphire, right?
Mm-hmm. I found it to be, if I remember correctly, not terribly juniper heavy.
No, it's more citrus and heavy on the flowers, like the heather and what's that other one? What am I smelling specifically?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've tried some
and some thistle. Like if you've ever gone to Scotland and thistle is a weed,
right?
For the most part, but
spiky and like one of those things that's got thorns all over it. And,
yeah, but it's the national flower of Scotland. If no one knew the thistle, because I can say and enunciate properly, I give up. But yeah, if you've ever come across them, if you've ever walked or gone on hikes in the Highlands or whatnot and come across the national flower, because I'm not going to say it again.
Thistle.
There you go. I'm gonna pause and you'll just input.
Just interject.
There you go. We got our backs. But yeah, if you've ever gone up to it and actually like walked through it or smelled it, it that. But it's got like a interesting medicinal and saltiness as well, and that's because the majority of the botanicals were, like I said, harvested in Islay.
Right. Yeah. That's something.
Lemons. A lot of lemons. Actually, I'm getting now.
Interesting.
Like lemon
citrus.
Zest.
Yeah, that's the being grown on Islay is what the Bruichladdich manager that I spoke to, he credited the Islay barley with having a particular unique flavor because of the grains being grown like in the vicinity of the sea and in like oceanic salt air and soil stuff like that. That's he credited the because everything else is like distilled in the same way, it's aged in the same place, etc.
Yeah.
For them, and the only difference pretty much is where the grains were grown.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna try it neat for the first time
mhm.
now. Wow. That's tasty, man.
Oh, we got a cocktail recommendation here.
Oh.
Burnt martini from Bitter and Jaded. 2 ounces dry gin, 1 ounce single malt. I am gonna have to try that.
Okay, I can do that right now.
Yeah.
Which is there a specific malt that I should be using?
I don't know. I mean, like, would you want something that's been peated or want something that's
2 ounces of gin. I think that's
well, it's like a 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, so I'm gonna add a bit more just because I want to take another sip of this before we move on to your Port Charlotte.
Yeah, I'd think you'd want something that's peated, probably.
Yeah, bitter and jaded. That's interesting tag or handle. What single malt would you recommend? I'll do it right now.
What else? What else do you have that's Bruichladdich? Octomore or
Octomore? But
There you go.
before. You can't mess with the Octomore, man. It's way too balanced.
It would be weird,
just
yeah.
dominate whatever you put it into.
Okay, Adam's saying Octomore too. Okay, let me take another sip of this just by itself because it's actually really nice.
A tiny amount of Octomore. Now that you're saying that, I want to try that too.
That is really good. Orange, a lot of citrus, but warm. A bit of salt. That's really nice.
That seems to be a common thread for Bruichladdich is a saltiness.
Yeah.
In Isla, right? Like everything.
Yeah, fair.
Is there. I don't think Bitter and Jade is gonna get back to me on the 1 ounce single malt, but I'm just gonna go get my Octomore.
All right.
Josh, go ahead.
Do it for the science.
Yes, science experiment in progress. So I would say that the Port Charlotte, it's almost like an Octomore that's turned down a couple of notches, if you will. It's rich, lots of smoke, but also some sweetness, citrusy, and some kind of bright fruit like apple. It's got this kind of salty brine, but also a lot of smoke and kind of phenolic contents. And and that cereal character, that malt character is in there as well. I don't know. I really love this. It reminds me a lot of Octomore 7.1 in particular, but just turned down a few notches. It's got the really similar flavor profile to that Octomore 7.1. What about it's been a while since I've had the classic laddie, Brad. Did we lose Brad?
Yeah. No, I'm always here. You're not going to lose me. It's fine. It's fine. YouTube is just drunk.
I got scared there for a minute.
But yeah, this classic laddie, it's so weird that it's not peated, but it's got that little bit of briny sort of saltiness that a lot of Bruichladdich stuff has.
Right.
A little bit of apples, little cereal notes in there, a little bit of I want to say honey, but it's like maybe honeysuckle, like the fruity thing that's like honey.
Sure. That honey but
like
it's more floral almost.
It's honey-esque, but it's not honey.
Adam giving his famous tasting notes.
Oh, Adam is amazing with tasting notes. I'm not even going to try to fight him on tasting notes. But yeah, it is really good, and it's hilarious to confuse people that don't know that it's not peated.
Yeah.
So that is always a good time. Okay, and I would always suggest the classic
Octomore might be a bit too much for my blend, but I'm gonna stick with it just because.
Just because.
Sure.
I'm gonna. I have the botanist back here. I'm gonna try that with. I'll do something unpeated, I guess.
Yeah, do something. Because he said he's like go non-Isla to give the gin a chance.
down in my non-whiskey cabinet.
Yeah.
The non-whiskeys get put in a shameful cabinet down below.
As they should.
They should feel bad for not being whiskey.
Brad, do you like gin?
No, that you drink the alcohol you like the way you like it.
Brad, do you like gin?
I don't really drink gin. I've
Okay.
only had a couple
I'm
randomly.
I'm gonna bring the bottle with me this weekend.
What
Sounds
would
good
pair
to me.
well? What would pair well with this?
It's citrusy.
Citrusy, so
I would think nothing finished.
nothing finished. Okay. Glengoyne.
Okay.
Maybe.
There you go. Might as well try.
The 18?
12.
Oh, the 12. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of just a clean malts. Like there's nothing crazy going on in there. Pretty straightforward. So
I'd be interested in trying a double black with this, just for that little bit of peat.
I have double black.
That's what I would. That's what I would probably. That's what I would lean to because I like peat more.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try double black. How about that?
Okay. Because I'm your boss.
Sure.
Well,
And I'm about to get fired, so.
I can't be trusted to be responsible for my own decisions.
No. Okay. So that's wow. Yeah.
Okay, so it was like a roughly 2-to-1. I'm going to mix a very little bit here, 'cause a lot. But the botanist,
Some serious science going on today.
right? I feel like I need beakers and test tubes.
I think I put too much, or maybe I just put it just enough. Oh boy, that's bacon right there.
Actually, it's been a minute since I've had this by itself, so.
Yeah, try it just by itself.
Oh yeah, it's so nice.
It really is. It's so surprising. I bought it because I saw it on sale at the local Toronto, Ottawa, Ontario liquor control board.
Ah,
And I just picked it up because I've been eyeing it for a while. And I was like, sure, I have a couple dollars lying around. I'll buy the botanist and just give it a shot.
sure.
I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, no, I get the first thing that comes to mind is like orange zest.
Yeah,
So-
very, very citrusy.
Oh, thanks, Steve. I also approve of my balcony's corner of the cabinet. It's quite beautiful. I have space waiting for the next 2 months of special releases. So
You might say that Josh is a fan.
maybe
Just a little bit.
a fanboy. Okay.
This has gone. Okay, so with Octomore, I usually get a lot of cooked pork.
Mm-hmm.
With the addition of the botanist, it brings it down to.
Wait, cooked cork?
Sorry,
So
cooked. My mic, obviously. Cooked pork.
Pork. Yes. Okay.
This brings it down to when you just put a bit of bacon on the frying pan and just kind of get it going a little bit, and it starts to sizzle for the first time, and you get that like rush of cooked meat.
Sure.
That's
When
what
the
I'm getting.
smell
right.
first kind of wafts up and hits you.
First waft you get as soon as you put the bacon down and it starts to sizzle immediately.
That
That's what
sounds
I'm
pretty
getting
good.
now, which don't usually get with Octomore by itself. I usually get more of a crispier cooked sort of pork deal.
Oh, whoa, that's super interesting. I could see that being straight up like a cocktail, just like a martini, but different.
It almost smells like, for my Italians, that probably nothing in the chat right now, but listening on the replay,
Mm-hmm.
sopressata. It's an Italian cured pork.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Right? Yeah. So, oh yeah, there it is. Like, so Italian cured pork is it's raw pork, ground, spiced, and then encased in a casing, either intestines, usually
like natural casing,
right, or an artificial one, but then hung and left to dry.
Sure.
Right? That drying process is about a month and a half, 2 months long. This smells like if you opened up the door to the cantina, to the store, like to the cold room, and just got a wolf of salt and like just kind of dried, cured pork right in the face.
You are really painting a picture for me right now.
Yeah,
that sounds pretty good.
I want to be there.
Yeah, this is on the nose. This is magical for me. This is all my childhood, and my grandmother, my nonna's house making some. Oh yeah, this is this is nice. This is really nice on the nose.
Are you getting still getting that like citrusy and herbal and floral character from the
on the back?
Yeah.
Right. If I move away about 2.5, 3 inches away, I'm getting more of the floral. But if I move in, it's all meats.
This is I would highly recommend trying it with the double black too. It's really interesting because the double black, it's not terribly aggressive or smoky for somebody that's used to peated whiskeys, right?
Sure.
But there's just enough of that in there to come through while still retaining the floral, citrusy, and kind of clean character that the botanist has.
Yeah.
Like I can still get all that, but with the addition of like a bit of smoke, a little bit of peat and butterscotch and stuff like that. It's super interesting. I would totally, if this was a cocktail in a bar, I would absolutely order it.
Yeah, we need to try it.
Oh, you hadn't even tried yours yet.
Mm-mm.
I was several tastes in.
I was too busy in the nose. Okay, so for reference, because I didn't say this to begin with, the Octomore I used was a 7.1, and it's identical, but more floral.
Interesting. So it mostly took it over.
It didn't ruin anything. It didn't ruin the balance of the Octomore, which I've had before. Well, when trying to blend a couple of things with Octomore, I've never had a lot of success with it.
Yeah, Octomore tends to get real weird real quick when you do anything to it.
Right. Yeah, everything's in a very delicate balance there, and you put that out, and
this did not ruin the Octomore. It did not ruin the botanist. The nose is magical. The taste is an approachable Octomore.
Interesting.
Right? It brought it down a notch and made it really pretty.
Kind of sweetened and floraled it up a little bit.
Not so much sweet. I feel like sweet might be the
sweet, like in a citrusy kind of way, not sugary.
Okay, yeah, like an orangey sort of way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Also, I need to comment really quickly.
Yeah.
Sniper Mac 1. I do need a haircut. I normally keep my head shaved. But I'm growing out my hair for a Halloween costume. And my Halloween costume this year is George Costanza.
It's gonna be amazing.
That's perfect.
It's gonna be amazing.
I'm gonna shave out the top. I got round glasses. I got a plaid shirt, corduroys, white shoes, and I'm gonna have a Vandalay Industries T-shirt underneath because nice. Nobody's gonna know who I am.
That's amazing.
Vandalay Industries T-shirt to be like, Vandalay, I'm Vandalay.
Nice.
That's awesome. Do you guys who's Canadian Whiskey Smith? Do you guys know Canadian whiskeys?
Canadian Whiskey Smith is Teresa. She's a level 1 whiskey somm.
Teresa, cool. I just figured in Canada, you guys all know each other. I thought.
Yeah, no, we all live on the same single street that runs the
Yeah.
entire width of Canada.
But
yeah,
we say sorry to one another.
Coincidentally, yes, I know all of the Canadians here.
So South Park was like a documentary, is what you're saying.
Well, I only don't have a floppy head because I got the surgery as a young child, you know.
Yeah. Does your car have square wheels on it?
Oh, man,
Not
that was good.
anymore.
Anymore.
Only the winter ones, you know, it's for traction.
Friday, you get that resolved.
Yeah, I'll get
That's
that
right.
worked out later this week.
All right. So,
Time.
the beatdown, I think, was a very big success.
Much success.
Yeah,
Much
one of us wasn't drinking a whiskey, but yeah, it was great.
I am now.
That's true.
Or-
Well,
Technically.
a cocktail.
Hey, you know what? At least it was a Bruichladdich.
True.
Right?
That is
Right?
true.
True.
Oh, you're still good. And even though you are visiting me Friday afternoon, the typical time where people get fired, you got nothing to worry about. Don't. It's fine. It's fine. Come on over.
That makes me more worried. All right. Let's get on to the fiddly bit section because
Let's do that.
let's get this wrapped up. I'm gonna go ahead and start.
Okay.
But I just want to finish this and just get back to this lovely blend. Friday, Monday evening, myself and Adam attended a Killiman tasting at the Caledonian, where we got to, under the guidance of distillery owner Anthony Wills,
So jealous of this.
Seriously.
got to
So
try
jelly.
in order the Macular Bay, the 2009 vintage, the Snag, the port cask matured, and the single cask PX finish released specifically for the LCBO, which is the Ontario Liquor Control Board.
I hate you now. That's it. That just did it.
It was
My
amazing.
jealousy consumes me.
For real.
So me and Adam had a little bit of a difference in opinion on the order. However, we both said that the top two that we tasted was the, I believe, if I remember correctly, he said, his number one was the single cask PX finish,
Mhm.
which was 57% ABV, with a 6-year first fill bourbon and 10-year finish in PX casks. It was phenomenal. That was my number two. My number one was the port cask mature, which was full maturation in ruby port. And I'm a sucker for port,
Yes.
and like I just went haywire. I'm not really good at tasting notes, but tasting this freaking dram, it was like immediate. I just nailed it. Like,
So
yeah,
I can get this, and you're saying I should.
yeah, you absolutely
Do
should.
it.
You can get
Do
like
it.
finished stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you like the port finish, Steve A asked full maturation port, ruby port. This was the, I'll tell you, the Killiman Port Cask Matured Isla Single Malt.
Yeah.
It's going to be released in Ontario in 2019. But by far, hands down, my favorite of the night. If you like port, you go get it. It's absolutely magical. Man, like the weirdest note I got off of it was strawberry funnel cake syrup.
Okay.
Is that's a particular type of strawberry syrup?
Just like you know when you go to a fairground and you get a funnel cake,
Yeah.
you get the strawberries and they douse it in syrup.
Is that what they do in Canada? They do.
What do they
It's
do in
always
America?
it's always powdered sugar.
What? Okay, that's standard.
Yeah.
But you can
They
get
do that too, yeah.
toppings.
Yeah.
What have I been missing?
Oh my God, Texas,
So many
what the heck,
things.
man?
We just fry candy bars and shit like that.
I'm sure it exists there. It's got to.
Yeah, man. If you've ever had a funnel cake and you've gone for the strawberry option with the syrup,
Yeah.
That is what it. Oh, so good.
What?
So good. But yeah, like Killiman, and I have a bottle, and we're gonna do something one day, episode wise. I have a bottle of a duty-free Killiman Cull Point that I haven't opened yet for reasons beyond my current sane state. Have not opened, but we're gonna do it one day. But
What are you doing with your life?
Killiman is doing amazing things.
They
The
really are.
owner is super down to earth, super just straight to the point, and yeah, if you've never got a chance to try their stuff, it's all fairly young, between 5, 4. They put some 4-year-old stuff in there, but between 5 and about 10 years old. They opened in 2005. Really young, but super robust.
Yeah, they're the first new distillery on Isla in 100 years or something like that.
There's another one opening up soon too, if I'm not mistaken. He mentioned.
Right. Yeah, there are new ones coming in now.
But yeah, if you've never had them, definitely try them. Mackyer Bay I feel is fairly accessible, as well as the Seneg, which I believe is sherry finished.
The Seneg, it's higher proportion of sherry versus bourbon, I believe, versus the Mackyer Bay is higher proportion of bourbon versus sherry.
That sounds right.
When he was talking about the Seneg, I was still on the 2009 vintage, which was 70% sherry hogshead and 30% ex-bourbon, which was also absolutely fantastic. Yeah, just bottom line, Killiman doing amazing things. Give them a shot.
They are
amazing. Just fantastic stuff.
Yeah, really delicious. Absolutely. My fiddly bit today is it's half a fiddly bit because I'm only halfway through with this book, but I'm really enjoying it so far. Tasting Whiskey by Lou Bryson, recommended to me by one the Weddle.
The Weddle
himself.
This book.
I think we can probably get the Weddle on at some point.
Probably.
We could probably make that happen.
Tease.
Recommended to me by the Weddle. I'm about halfway through it now. It's a super cool book, and it starts off with, the ways that whiskey is made and the ways it's matured and just all kinds of super nerdy detail. And I've learned a lot of the, I guess, kind of finer points or questions that I've always had that I was never really clear on. Stuff like one of the more interesting things I read this week in here was if you have, say, a 10-year-old expression from a distillery and then you have an 18-year-old expression from that same distillery, you can't assume that that's exactly the same thing, but just left for longer time, right? There will be different barrels in different proportions, et cetera, that goes into the 18 versus the 10. Sure. It's not just, the exact same barrels left for 8 more years. Which I found to be super interesting. That's kind of the assumption you'd make based on the label, right?
Right.
Yeah. I'd highly recommend it. It's if you only ever get one book on whiskey to learn, a huge overview of all the different styles and how everything's made, and this would be the one I'd recommend. So
it is very good.
Brad, you've read it, right?
I have, yeah.
Well, Brad, I think, didn't you have to read it to get your Psalm 1?
Well, you didn't have to, but you got it during the Psalm 1 classes.
You got it as reading material.
Yeah, it's part of the...
Right, yeah, they base a lot of the classes based on this book material.
Yep, between that and Whiskey Distilled are the two kind of main source material books for the level 1.
And this is for people that may be watching and not or listening and not know where you get your whiskey somm training. Where do you get it, Brad?
Austin, Texas, at the Wizard Academy. Which is
I think
not a Harry Potter theme park, but it is an amazing place to learn about all kinds of things, one of which is whiskey.
Yeah.
We'll link it in the description for anyone interested in just taking a look. They offer a lot of classes, as well as the whiskey somm stuff, a lot of business and marketing courses.
Of course, the location of Crowded Barrel Distillery.
Yep,
as well
on
as
the same grounds. Yep.
And the Whiskey Vaults YouTube channel, etc.
Yeah, we'll link it in the description for anyone interested in further expanding their whiskey knowledge in a more physical way.
In case they want one of these ridiculous things to show off.
Yes, I do want one of those ridiculous things.
Whiskey. And yeah, okay, so that's cool. I honestly, I don't do a lot of reading. I should do more, but I can't sit down for whatever reason.
They have audiobooks, man. It's 2018.
I know, but like
That was when I brought this up to you the other night. I was like, "Hey, have you read this book?" And you're like, "No." No, I don't even know what it is, but the answer is no.
Yeah, like ask me, have you read? No, don't even ask me that question. But I'm making a dedicated effort to try. Like I try so hard with the Dark Tower series.
Tell you what, would you come on Friday? I will give you the copy that I have so that you can read it.
Yeah, and what's kind of cool about this book is it's kind of it's like in a textbook sort of format where there's graphic illustrations and sidebars and things like that, so it kind of breaks it up. It's not like reading, a novel, right? You can break it up into small sections, and the chapters are all pretty short. And yeah, it's more like a textbook than it is just reading, Yeah,
it's more like going back to school. Doesn't that sound fun, Vito?
Yeah, that sounds really exciting.
It's so much fun.
Really selling it.
Would be whiskey school, so that's fun.
That is true.
Brad, what do you got?
I have a way to save yourself when you get a broken cork, which is a 2-pronged cork puller.
I've seen those. Yeah,
they're made mainly for like wine stuff, but they work on most whiskey corks as long as it's got like a flat-ish top and not like a ridiculous topper on it. But basically, you stick it in around the cork and you kind of twist and get it in there, and then you can pull it out because it'll just by friction, you can grab the sides of the cork instead of the broken top bit.
Have you had to use it yet?
I have. I actually got it on Amazon next day delivery because a bottle of Ardbeg 10 had a broken cork, and I definitely didn't want to waste that.
Yeah.
And it works great. I've only used it the once so far, but it worked great that time. So hopefully it'll keep working.
I need another whiskey toy, I think.
Yeah,
that sounds sort of inappropriate.
No comment and no judgment.
Well, I mean, from the look of that thing, you might be able to use it in a few inappropriate fashions.
Well, Jeffrey Patron said it seems like a tool to deal with people who request Brad butt too much.
I mean,
is that even possible? Can you request Brad butts too much?
I don't think so. I don't know. All right.
We did an HR department at this podcast.
I am going to get my supervisor.
Yeah.
Brad?
Yes, Josh.
I don't feel safe.
Well, I'll tell you what, Josh, maybe we should just end this podcast and then, I'll have a nice talk with Vito on Friday when he's here. And next week we'll find out who the new host is.
Night, you know what happened?
Do I know what happens?
You might not, which is probably better.
Yeah.
So
might be for the best.
We're going to end this lovely, informative, and wildly somewhat inappropriate
on that note.
With just a huge thank you to everyone that stuck with us while we rambled on for an hour and a half. A little bit more than what we would normally like, but we had a super filled episode. We wanted to share a lot with you guys.
And absolutely no technical difficulties.
No. This is all intentional, just for your entertainment.
Our producer extraordinaire, the demi-host, just knows exactly what to do at the right time. There were no technical difficulties.
That's right.
He has the master plan.
Okay, and I'm gonna quickly shout out Mr. Jeffrey Patron. he's got a live stream tomorrow evening,
Yes.
7:30 Eastern Standard Time with our own co-host Josh.
Howdy.
3 American single malts are going to be discussed tomorrow.
Balcones Mirador, the Colkegan, and the Corsair Triple Smoke.
The Colkegan single malt.
Colkegan single malt.
Oh, so delicious.
Balcones Mirador, and the Corsair Triple Smoke.
Yeah,
Nice.
all good. If you don't know, that's going to be hosted on the Whiskey Tribe Facebook group. If you're not a member, we'll link, and this is a lot of work for Brad. We're going to link the video to the Whiskey Vault, Whiskey Tribe Facebook group, as well as the video that you should initiate yourself with.
For God's sake, answer. There's 3 questions. Just answer the 3 questions.
They're very simple. Just answer
Super
them.
easy.
Easy. Watch the video, answer the question, request the entry into the Facebook group, get entry, watch the stream. It's a lot of good stuff that's gonna happen tomorrow. Jeff Patron's awesome. Obviously, Josh, you're watching this, you know he's awesome. Looking forward to it myself. I should be in Ottawa by that time, so I may be able to jump in at a certain point and heckle you guys.
Oh, please do.
Oh, I will. And yeah, so going back a little bit, thank you to everyone that's joined us. You guys are awesome. Again, like or dislike, and if you're gonna dislike, tell us what you didn't like. We're gonna keep on formulating and discussing and figuring out what works best for this format. And we're going to try again. We're gonna keep on adding things and inviting people on. We have a big list of what we want to do, but we need your input. We need it because we want to know what everyone wants.
Got to keep it fresh.
And
yeah,
we just really appreciate everyone sticking around.
Yeah, so, cheers, guys.
Yeah, so cilantro to everyone, and we'll see you next week. Stay classy, stay safe, and drink very, very, very slowly.
Very.
Cheers.